Jai Mahamaya ki jai, Vishveshwari Mata ki jai, Bhole Baba ki jai. In our last discourse, we learned about King Nimi choosing not to take another body. And also we heard the beginning of the tale of the Haiyayas, and we'll go on with that. So we're on chapter 16. King Janamejaya said, in whose family were born those Ksatras, the Haiyayas, that killed in ancient times the Bhargavas, disregardless of the sin incurred in killing a Brahmin. O teacher, never do the good persons become angry without a serious cause. Therefore, kindly state why they got angry. How was the enmity cause between them and the priests? As far as I can think, the cause is not so simple a one as to lead to this enmity between the Ksatras and the priests. Otherwise, then, would they slay the offenseless Brahmins fit to be worshipped? And how was it that the Ksatras, though they were so very powerful, did not fear to commit a sin? O Muni, can any Ksatra chief kill a Brahmin worthy of the highest respect merely on a trifling cause? Describe to me then how this happened. A great doubt has arisen in my mind. Vedavyasa, the son of Satyavati, became very pleased when he was asked this question by King Janamejaya, and recollecting the whole course of events regarding the Haiyayas, began to narrate it. Vedavyasa said, O son of Pariksit, I will now narrate that wonderful story of old that I know fully now. Well, hear this very attentively. In ancient times, there was a king named Kartavirya of a family of the Haiyayas. He had 1,000 hands, powerful and always ready to observe religious duties. He was the incarnation of Vishnu and the disciple of Maharishi Dattatreya and the worshipper of the supreme force Adi Shakti. He was well known as a perfect adept in the yoga practices and a very charitable disposition. But this king was the client of Brahmins of the Bhargava clan. He was always devoted to performing sacrifices, exceedingly religious, and always engaged in making gifts. So many a time did he perform the great sacrifices and gave profuse quantities of wealth to the Bhargavas. Due to the gifts and presents of Kartavirya, the Bhargava priest became possessed of many horses and gems and jewels, and so became wealthy and prosperous on the surface of this earth. O king, when Kartavirya, the best of kings, left the mortal coil and got up to the heavens, his descendants became entirely void of any wealth by the indomitable influence of time. Now, on a certain occasion, the Haiyayas had to perform certain actions which necessitated a vast sum of money. They came to the Bhargavas and humbly prayed for a large amount of wealth to be lent to them. But the Brahmins, out of their greed of money, replied they had no money, and thus they did not give any money whatsoever. Rather, the Bhargavas thought that the Haiyayas would perforce take their wealth, and feeling thus, some of them buried all their valuables underneath the ground, and others gave as charities to the Brahmanas. The greedy Bhargavas, bewildered with fear, thus transferred all their properties elsewhere, quitted their homes, and fled away to the mountains and other places. The greedy Brahmins did not give any wealth to their yajamanas, who were their clients, though they saw them and they fled away out of fear to the mountains and fastness, where they found shelter. At last the Haiyayas, the best of the Ksatras, became very sorry, till at last, for the sake of their good actions, they went to the Bhargavas' houses for the sake of money, and found that they had quitted their houses and fled away. Their houses were all vacant. Then they began to dig underneath their houses for money, and some got the money thus. Then the Ksatras began to labor hard and got hordes and hordes of money from underneath the ground. Next, they raided upon other Brahmanas' houses and dug and excavated and searched for more money. The Brahmins were helpless and crying. All took their refuge out of fear under the Bhargavas. The Ksatras made an exhaustive search of the Brahmanas' houses and got lots of money. They then charged the Brahmanas as having had spoken falsehood, and they became very angry and killed the Brahmanas with arrows who took their refuge. O king, the Haiyayas were so very angry at that time that they went wherever the Bhargavas took their shelter and cut asunder the fetuses and the wombs of the Bhargavas' wives, and they roamed all over the surface of the earth. Wherever they saw a Bhargava, be he a minor, a youth, or an old man, at once they killed him with sharp arrows, disregarding the sin of Brahmahatya. When the Bhargavas were thus all killed, then they caught hold of their wives that were pregnant and destroyed their wombs. When the vicious Ksatras thus destroyed the lives and the wombs, the helpless women began to cry like the awe-stricken ewe. Then the other Munis, the inhabitants of the sacred places of pilgrimage, seeing the Haiyayas, Ksatras, inflamed with anger, said, "O Ksatras, quit your terrible anger toward the Brahmans. Being the best of the Ksatras, you are killing the fetuses in the wombs of the pregnant Brahmana ladies. You are doing, no doubt, a very vicious and unjustifiable act. You should know that an act very bad or very good bears fruit in this life. Therefore, those that seek their welfare should entirely omit this exceedingly hateful and vicious act." Then the exceedingly angry Haiyayas told the merciful ascetics, "You are all saints, therefore you do not know the real import of what are called vicious acts. Those Bhargavas, thoroughly dexterous in cunning pursuits, deceived our large-hearted forefathers and stole away all their gold and jewels, as thieves do with the passerby on a road. These Bhargavas are cheats, vain persons, and their persuasions are like herons. A great act had to be done by us, and we wanted money at 25% interest with all the becoming humility. Yet they did not give us the money. Rather, seeing on their face their clients distressed and sorrowful, they spoke lies and said they had no money. And then they remained silent. True, they got all their money from the Ksatras, but it may be questioned why they stored it. Why didn't they not perform sacrifices with that? Why did they not give sufficient money to other priests that did the sacrifices? Never should any Brahmin hoard his money. He should give that in charity and enjoy at his pleasure. O twice born, in amassing wealth there exist three fears. Fear from the thieves and robbers, fear from the king, fear from the dreadful fire accidents, and especially great, terrible fear from the cheats. This is the nature of wealth. It leaves its preserver. See, moreover, when a hoarder of money dies, he certainly has to quit it. If a wealthy man, before dying, performs sacrifices and other good pious acts by his earned money, then he gets certainly good states in future. Otherwise, he quits his wealth to no purpose and earns a bad state in the future life. There is no doubt in this. We humbly wanted to pay a quarter interest and asked money for the performance of a great act, yet they, the greedy ones, were doubtful about our promise, and though our priests, they did not give us money. O Maharishi, gifts, enjoyment, and destruction, these are the three main courses which any wealth has to pass through. Those persons that have done good deeds enjoy wealth and give us charities, and thus they make a good and real use of their money. And of those that are vicious, their wealth goes away in ruin and to no purpose. He who does not enjoy nor give in charities, but is only clever in hoarding, and who is a miser, the kings punish him by all means. That man who cheats himself and who suffers only pains and miseries. For that reason, we are now ready to kill those Brahmins, the vilest of men, the cheats, though they are our gurus. O Maharishis, you are great persons, therefore you do not get angry after you have come to know all these things. Thus consoling the Munis with reasonable words, the Haiyayas began to roam about in search of the Bhargavas. The Bhargavas all fled weeping into the Himalaya mountains, trembling with fear. Thus the Bhargavas were killed by those vicious, greedy Haiyayas, infuriated with anger as they liked. This greed is the greatest enemy of a man residing in his own body. This greed is the root of all evils, of all sins. Life is in danger due to this covetousness. It is due to this greed that quarrels ensue amongst the several castes, the Brahmins, etc., and that human beings are very much troubled with the thirst after worldly enjoyments. This greed makes a man forsake all his religious rites and long existing customs and observances of his family. And it is due to this avarice of gold that men kill their fathers, mothers, brothers, friends, gurus, sons, acquaintances, sisters, and sister-in-laws, and others. Really, when a man is bent on avarice, nothing heinous remains to him that cannot be done by him. This greed is a more powerful enemy than anger, lust, and egoism. O king, men abandon their lives for their greed. What more can be said than this? So one should be always alert on this. O king, your forefathers, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, were all religious, and they followed the path of virtue and goodness. Yet they all were ruined simply for this greed. See, the dreadful fight and separation amongst the relatives took place, where there were the high-souled persons like Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Valika, Bhimasena, Yudhishthira, Arjuna, and Kesava, only through the avarice feelings. In this battle, Bhishma, Drona, and the sons of Pandavas were all slain. Their brothers and fathers were all slain in battle. Thus, what improper acts and mischiefs can there be that cannot be committed when the human mind are overpowered by greed, O king? The vicious Haiyayas slew the Bhargavas all through this avarice. Here ends the 16th chapter in the 6th book on the incidents preliminary to the Haiyayas and Bhargava affairs in the Mahapurana Srimad Devi Bhagavatam by Maharishi Veda Vyasa. Jai Mahamaya ki jai, Vishveshvari Mata ki jai, Bole Baba ki jai.